basically made the decision to stop going to school. There comes to a point in life where sometimes you feel like you're meant to be on a different path. My dad would tell me that he didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was like 7 or 8 years old.
Have you ever been broke starting your business? How's it going, everybody? My name is Tristan Guerrero. I got my new co-host here, Isaac Ramirez with West Coast Property Bros. Today we have a special guest, Jorgenna. Thank you for coming on the show today on Straight to the Point. Let the audience know like where we met and who you are as a person.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for even having me on. I'm so happy to be here with you guys and be a part of this. I've known Isaac for a couple years now. We recently reconnected. He, invited me to be part of the podcast. I thought it was awesome what you guys were doing. So, of course, agreed, to be part of it. What you guys are doing here is awesome. Just happy to be a part of it.
Well, glad to have you on, Jorgenna. So let's just dive right in. At 19, you had no idea where you would take your life in your career. And now you lead 700 agents, have built a 7-figure business by 25. How did you build that amount of time?
In the beginning, it was definitely, I definitely had a lot of limited beliefs as a 19-year-old, not having any experience or really confidence in the field, but thankfully I attribute a lot of the growth to just the circle of people that I had around me, a lot of the people in the office too. I'm a firm believer that the people around you, they really help build you up or they bring you down. Like we all know the example of the bucket of crabs, like when one crab tries to come out, the rest of them pull it down, so right. I think it has to do a lot with your environment, right? So yeah, staying around the right people and really just having resilience, to keep going. Anything in life worth going after, you're going to have to, fall, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, but you just have to keep going until you get there.
Totally.
Yeah.
First of all, it's so good to see you again, after all this time, and really appreciate you again taking some time. You're absolutely right. Business is proximity is the biggest thing with business, and able to have the right people, the right mentors. And shout out to my guy, Tristan. It's a brand new chapter, that we're starting. And just like you said, having the proximity around each other is the most important thing, I think, to be able to propel yourself where you need to be.
Right.
That's really cool that, it doesn't matter what industry or what you're doing in life. Like, it's almost like these same themes matter.
Yeah.
Like they're applicable to every single situation, so that's so cool. And you started the agency when you were 19.
Well, yeah, that's when I got my license when I was 19. I basically made the decision to stop going to school. I was a full-time student before, and I did 2 years of school, and I just felt kind of how we were talking earlier. There comes to a point in life where sometimes you feel like, I'm meant to be on a different path. So I kind of just took a left turn or a right turn, and I switched the path that I was heading on, and 6 years later, I wish I would have made the decision sooner.
How did you even venture or find that road?
Right. So basically I got invited to a big convention with the company that I'm with now. Yeah. And it was just a whole new environment. I saw people that had the quality of life, the lifestyle that I wanted. And it just gave me a, huge, it was like a perspective shift. Right. And, coming from an environment where in school the professors would just tell you like, get a job with good benefits that pays you maybe $80,000 a year and be there until you're 65 and then retire, which is what everyone's usually told. Right. Yeah. But when I went to the convention, there were people, that had freedom of time, freedom of money. And I just fell in love with that. Right. Plus what you were able to do for people, being proud of how you're able to make a differess in people's lives.
That's the most important part, like the purpose, why is the work impactful? What kind of lifestyle did you envision for yourself? I know because we grew up in Palmdale or in Lancaster, the Antelope Valley. It's like this small town over in the middle of California. And not much going on out there, So what do you think, inspired your desire to have that sort of lifestyle?
Right. Well, I think just always looking for, okay, what else is next? What's better? How can I elevate from here? Because my parents, they immigrated, and just hearing their story of how they came from another country, established their life here, it just inspired me to, hey, where you start off is not where you have to end, because obviously we can't control what environment we're born into, but we control what environment we stay in,
When you said that you made that right turn, what was ultimately that decision factor for yourself that made you want to make that right turn after going to school and now wanting to take a step back from that and go into what you're doing now?
Right. Yeah, I guess I just didn't see myself following the plan that the professors at, college was leading towards, right? So I guess I didn't see myself working until I was 65, retiring and, that whole thing, right? Of get a good job, climb up the ladder. So it was really just, choosing to shift, but I would say that I felt like I wasn't fully aligned with the path that I was going on.
Well, what school did you go to?
UC Santa Cruz.
UC Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's why you're in Santa Cruz.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. The slugs, banana slugs.
Yeah. And then did you finish school?
No, I just did 2 years.
2 years left.
Yeah.
And now you built a 7-figure business. It's crazy. It's insane.
Thank you.
What really gave you the confidence to bet on yourself before the world even validated your potential?
Yeah, good question. And it's funny because when I made that decision to leave school, I had a lot of people telling me, and people that really cared about me, they were telling me, hey, just finish school. You only have 2 more years. Go into business for yourself. It's not steady. You don't know if it'll work, but I think it was more so just, the thought of like, what if, right? Because you can go through life just settling with the comfortable thing to do or the thing that people think that you should do, but really you're not living in your purpose. Right? So I think it was just that thought of me getting older and saying, wow, I should have done this, or I should have went a little bit more for what I wanted. Right?
Have that regret.
Yeah, exactly. The fear of regret. Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty courageous thing to do, right? Like, not only are you going against what your family and close people are recommending for yourself, but I mean, I'm sure a brand new path that you hadn't even like really ventured on before. And I'm sure it was very fearful, or just like the uncertainty aspect of kind of what it's going to take to really kind of go through that path. A lot of people feel stuck in that fear, in that mode, right? Like before not being able to take the first step or not being able to make the decision for themselves. Jorgenna, how do you get your mind or train your mind to move forward from the fear of failure, fear of judgment, especially when the results weren't, kind of there right away?
Right.
Like, how do you train your mind to?
Yeah, it is exactly how you said. It's kind of like you have to actively train your thoughts, train your mindset, because it's so easy to just go with our emotions, but there's never really any growth or success if we just go with our emotions. Like if we just, like even waking up, we can say, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like waking up early, but there's no growth in that, So again, like how you said, just training your mind to sticking to what you said you were going to do, even if you don't feel like doing it. And it is, always an ongoing battle. Yeah. Just listening to the right things, reading the right books, talking to the right people, just being intentional about what you surround yourself by. I heard this example of like, think of, I don't know, like battleships, how big they are, right? They're safe in the harbor. They're safe when they're just docked, but that's not what they were created for.
So going through all this training, because you can do all the training, but if without action, like what is it for then? You know what I mean? And like what you said, where it's almost like the ultimate form of self-love.
Yeah.
Like, or self-discipline even. Like it comes easy when you love yourself.
Yeah.
And to be able to, like this guy, dude, he's a savage. Even just this morning, he ran like 8 miles. Just because yesterday he was like, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and run 8 miles at a 6:30 pace.
That's crazy. But you know what? It really is just the self-discipline, I think, does equal like self-love, because you just respect your word enough to follow through with what you said you were going to do. Yeah.
Exactly. Which ultimately leads to confidence, right? And confidence is everything in the name of the game of business, of being an entrepreneur, being in sales, more importantly. How did you build yours over time? Was it just doing what you said you were going to do, like over a long period of time? Or was there something specific, like, especially when your results, right, in your business, you're fresh into it, never done it before. I don't know if you've ever been in sales before this job before this venture, right?
Yeah.
So when the results weren't immediate and the pressure was on, right, you you just got your license.
Yeah.
How would you say your confidence was built over time?
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously in the beginning there's a lot of room for growth, we could say, for confidence when you're just starting off in something new, but yeah, just slowly over time, I think just having that belief in yourself where, hey, even if I mess this up, at least it was my own call to mess it up. It wasn't, if you take a wrong turn, there's no one else to blame but yourself. And there's kind of like some comfort in that, because okay, now I know how to not mess it up for next time. But I would say, yeah, just slowly over time.
it's funny because a lot of people feel like it's easy to be self-accountable, but it's like missing in a lot of the world, you know, like, so it's like a very special trait, you know, I hope you know that, like, self-accountability it's something that like not a lot of people have for some reason.
Yeah.
That's what separates truly like the winners and the people that are just kind of going through the motions, you know,
Right.
self-accountability to be able to like look inner into themselves, right? Like to be able to be like, okay, like, what am I doing wrong, right? Or what am I doing right? And let me keep doing, you know, like adjust or make the adjustment. Or
I think going off of that too, like a lot of people have a lot of self-doubt in themselves.
Yeah.
Especially like growing up, turning 18 is the start of adulthood here.
Yeah.
And when people try to get an actual job at really big companies, have these big dreams, they can't even make that first step because maybe they're just doubting themselves, their self-worth because they're too young. I mean, how were you able to make that first step at 19?
Yeah.
Someone that just got into adulthood to say like, hey, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go get it.
Right. I definitely had a lot of that same mindset, a lot of those same doubts of, oh, you know, I'm 19, no experience, no degree. How is it gonna work, you know? But thankfully, I just had a lot of examples around me in the same industry. A lot of our other, you know, brokers or agents that were next to me that just served as examples. And that really, I really just try to keep blinders on to focus on the people that were where I wanted to be. I focus on their advice.
Oh, totally. And people can tell you everything. Every day, someone new is going to tell you something. And you got to kind of just take it with a grain of salt, right? And you know what? I love them, all my friends and family, but it's not what's best for you, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's what you're doing what's best for you. And it's not selfish. I had to come to realization of myself moving down here. Yeah, I was moving away from all my family, but I was doing it for myself.
Right.
I don't know if you felt any way, shape or form where you're like, man, this is kind of selfish. I'm leaving my family to do this, to pursue this, to chase my dreams. What would you tell someone like watching this, Gen Z or someone just starting off?
Right.
Like, don't be afraid to do that, to take that first step or think about what other people are telling you to do because it's ultimately your decision.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think, again, just sometimes in life, it comes to a point where you just feel that it's time to jump or it's time for a change. And you either reap the consequences of jumping, taking a leap of faith, or the consequence years down the road is, man, I should have, or what life would I have been living if I would have just jumped back then, you know, because your window of opportunity, not that it's ever too late to start something new, you know, but your window of opportunity, sometimes it's just for a second, you know, and if you just let it pass by, then it's like a ripple effect, like the butterfly effect, you know, it's, right. So I think just taking advantage of when you feel like it's time to jump, sometimes you just have to take the leap of faith.
That butterfly effect is very real.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that. Dude.
Yeah.
Like it's one decision, one choice. Like it ultimately puts you, I think what's the analogy? It's like a plane or something like that. Like just 2 or 3 degrees taking off from LA, from Washington DC or something. Like you're going to end up in New York. Like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, so it's pretty wild, like to be able to just make a decision, right? Cause that's where a lot of people struggle, I feel, is making the decision.
Right.
You know, and whether it's analysis paralysis or, you know, just something else, a fear or anything, judgment, like, honestly, dude, like, fuck it, dude, like, just go for it, dude. Like, you know, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
You know, especially if you feel like you're in rock bottom.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get any lower than that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. So, even with your example, how you were saying that you worked at a shoe store?
Yeah,
before
a shoe store. Yeah,
so let's say you decide to take the jump. You say, you know what, life is calling me to another city, to another career. Let me try this. Let me start this. Worst case scenario, you always know how to go back and work at a shoe store.
Totally. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you always know how to go back and do, you know, like even for me, worst case scenario, I always know how to go back and be a student.
Right.
You know?
And in terms of myself, I don't think of that. I think there's only one way to do it for myself, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other step people have that they need to overcome is, am I going to have enough resources to be able to make it, you know?
Right.
Me and him have been going at it for the last 7 months, and we're all the way down here in terms of resources. But being able to meet with the right people has really regained our confidence and our drive, our momentum again. So I feel like we're in this new wave right now. But a lot of people are stuck because they fear about hitting rock bottom, like what he said. Like, I don't know if you experienced that starting off in a brand new job, your first year or maybe first 2 years where, man, I am freaking broke right now. Like, what am I going to do? How do I dig myself out of this hole?
No, yeah, definitely. Whenever you start something new, I think you automatically just kind of start off at the bottom, right? Top of that, your confidence is low. You don't have experience. You're like, man, did I make the right choice? You know? Yeah, I think it's just having that belief in yourself, because if you don't believe that it'll happen, then what's the point? You know? I heard another analogy too of Steph Curry. We were just talking about him, that he's what, like the best 3-point shooter in the NBA.
Oh
right?
yeah, he is.
I didn't know about shooter.
Okay, yeah, right. The best shooter. I forgot the numbers, but I think to this day he's made like 4,000 shots, 3-point shots, something like that.
Yeah.
But he's missed more shots than he's made.
Yeah. Same with Kobe Bryant too.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And you think about it, like most people haven't even tried as many times as he's failed.
Yeah.
But he's remembered as the best shooter, even though he's missed more times than he's even made it. Isn't that so crazy? And oftentimes we're even scared to just fail once.
What's a challenge that you have had to overcome, like in your industry or in your agency, like that you maybe felt like, oh, like I'm not stuck, but just that you had to like have a breakthrough, right? Like whether it was recruiting, because that's like a whole different ballgame, even aside from sales, right?
Yeah.
From sales to then recruiting and now being a leader. What challenges did you overcome, whether it was like in those first year? Because you've been RVP, right, for the past 4 years?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
okay.
3-4 years.
So what breakthrough did you have or challenge did you overcome in order to like just start having those growth periods?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I had kind of like a limited belief that I couldn't recruit or have people on my team that were like older married couples. Cause I'm like, who's going to like listen to like this 13 or 19-year-old kid, you know? So that was like a barrier that I had to break through. And once I did that, my business changed, because I went from just working with people kind of like in my same point in life, same age, to now people that were, you know, they have families, they have kids depending on them. It was a whole different perspective. So definitely that when I made that change, it changed.
Just a mindset shift is what like ultimately made the difference.
Yeah, just a mindset shift, and really just saying like, hey, you know what? Really just deciding to not let those things like intimidate me, you know, because at the end of the day, they don't teach us about like investing, finances in school. That's something that everybody needs to know about, you know, and when you're sitting in front of a family, probably the same for you, like in real estate, you know, they don't show us how to buy a home or what the process is, you know? Yeah. So when you're probably talking to someone older, you're like, hey, this is my realm. Let me introduce, this is what I know, you know? So just, yeah, taking off like the limited belief.
No, that's awesome. That's fire.
I got this from the School of Hard Knocks, but I have to ask it. Have you ever been broke starting your business from when you started it to where you are today? Have you ever been broke?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I made the decision to start the business, it wasn't an easy transition. Even before that, I was just, you know, a college student. I was actually working at the Habit Burger,
yeah.
you know, and yeah, so imagine like the transition, working at a burger spot, going to school. I was studying computer science, something so different.
Wow.
And then to now I'm going to be a professional in the finance industry, you know? So yeah, in the beginning, it was definitely an adjustment. I think that is where the character is built, you know, where you really see like, is this something that I really want to go after? And it's almost like live testing you. Like, do you really want this? Let's see how bad you want it, you know?
Catching her stride, dude. That's kind of what it's
Yeah, no, totally. And I asked that too, because people are scared to go broke to really chase what they truly love. Like, we're in the middle of it right now, hoping it's going to be this amazing story by the end of it, you know, just like yourself. You know, you just got to kind of look past that. Like what you said, like, if you really believe it's going to happen, you chase that. Yeah. No matter what happens, it's going to pan out. And you look at all these top high profile individuals, you know. Yeah. They all went broke at some point in their life. Once, twice, multiple times on over in order to be able to get to where they're at today. And honestly, I think that's what makes you stronger. Yeah. Having to live through that. Yeah, it's true. And endure the pain. It's true. It's almost like the things that you complain about end up being your biggest blessings, you know, because that's where like your grit is.
is, comes to be, or that's where you just learn how to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and okay, and then it builds your confidence, right? Because you're like, man, if I can get through this, I can, no problem. Everything else will be a walk in the park. Yeah.
Totally. I kind of switching gears a little bit. You've built a team of over 700 agents under you now. How are you able to build a team so large now after having to go through rejection, having to follow with the people that you feel like had potential and them not joining your team? Like, how did you have to deal with that and really believe in yourself to keep moving forward and not give up?
Yeah, definitely what I had to learn is, I like to say that, I work in finance really, but my business it's like a people business. And that was one thing that I was lacking of just, communicating, leadership, just really connecting with people. So that's something that I definitely had to learn along the way. And again, it's funny that they don't really teach you in school how to network, how to build relationships with people, but that's probably one of the skills that'll get you the furthest in life, right? Yeah, I mean, I definitely had to just kind of like learn to fail forward, and even now there's people that still say no. There's always going to be the ones that say no, but what changes is you just build tougher skin, and you say, okay, on to the next, Yeah.
So on top of believing in yourself as a leader now, right, an incredible sized team, how do you continue to pour belief into your people, right? Like over the time, practice your people speaking skills, your leadership. Do you have certain things that you like to do for your team, or, what is it about you and your team that like really retains a lot of that amount of people, like there's companies that have super high turnover every 6 months or every year, like what do you do for your team that like really keeps it like grounded?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is always casting a vision for everybody, right? Because imagine if we're going here to San Diego, but we don't have a GPS. We don't know where north is. It'll be pretty hard, So when you cast a vision, it's kind of like you're pointing to what north is, right? Again, keeping a good relationship with them, but I would say most importantly, keep like a vision, pointing to what north is, because everybody in life, they're just trying to make the best for themselves, right?
Support themselves, have an income, like you said, kind of breaking through people like doing that job to support themselves and their family, like much less as a side hustle. Would you say like you guys' training and like the processes, if you will, is key to making sure people are earning their income in order to support themselves and their families?
Yeah, definitely. Also, we believe a lot in competition, healthy competition. I think the second that you stop competing, you're dead in business, because that's what, at least for me, I grew up really competitive in a healthy way. But,
Did you play sports?
Yes. I played sports. I played soccer, right? So,
nice.
So, iron sharpens iron. I think in the end, when you're competing with each other, you just come out better, both of you at the end, both parts. Yeah.
Something that we all have in common. We're all athletes at some point, Like, maybe a lot of entrepreneurs. Maybe it's like a trait,
maybe.
But I think it's more so kind of, again, like, I feel like we've been talking about mindset a lot, of what it takes to like kind of just be mentally tough, And honestly, I credit being an athlete. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I credit being an athlete to like really helping form those characteristics of like what it takes to be a champion. We talked about Steph Curry, we talked about Kobe, like all these people. What do they have in common? It's the tough mindset.
Yeah.
If you come from sports or anything like that, like I think you're in a good spot. You're ahead of the curve,
Definitely. It teaches you a lot.
But there's definitely other ways, to be successful and everything like that. So, but that's great. That's so cool that is it yourself? Is it only you? Like, are you the main leader of your agency, or do you guys have like partnerships, or kind of what does the structure look like in you guys' industry?
No, we definitely have. So besides me, there's 25 other brokers. The 700 agents, they're spread out we're primarily in California, but we're spread out all through the 50 states. Most of our offices are in Southern California, one in Vegas. We're, kind of spread out, but there's 25 other brokers.
Right on. So you guys kind of came together to form one like mega agency, or?
You could say we kind of work as a team. Yeah.
Okay.
Like our trainings together, a lot of our events together,
So the competitions are like amongst you guys then?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. How would you say that your roots grounded you and shaped, your mental toughness overall, right? Like, were you just something that you were born with, and like, you just like happen to be this hot shot, like person, or like how would you say your roots maybe impacted you into becoming or developing the sort of mindset?
Yeah. I think just growing up, I was always fascinated by how my parents immigrated from El Salvador and basically just picked up, you were talking about picking up your life from Northern California and coming down here, and they came from El Salvador and they just established their life over here at like 20 years old. And it always fascinated me, like, wow, having to learn a whole new language, a whole new culture, just everything, And to me, I'm like, that's hard. That's tough. Like, imagine leaving everything that you know and love and just moving like to a whole nother country, So I almost felt like whatever someone telling me no, or maybe something not going the way that I wanted to in business, that's not hard, like compared to what they, had to go through, or even just the way that they grew up. My dad would tell me that he was telling me like that he didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was like 7 or 8 years old. And I told him like he would just like go to school like that. And he was like, oh yeah, like all the kids were like that. Like it was normal for us.
Wow.
And I just couldn't even
fathom
that concept, So I'm like, that's hard, So yeah, definitely. I think my roots, whether it was sports or my parents immigrating or just, where we grew up, it definitely shaped the road,
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Maybe even like their whole backstory of moving to America is hard in itself. Would you say like part of that transition, moving into America from El Salvador, leaving everything behind, kind of helped transition you to become more mentally tough in a way?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely taught me to always be humble, because no matter what, you always have to remember where you come from, where your family comes from, right? And I think I still have family that lives over there.
Oh, nice.
And even just seeing how life is over there. Again, it just was like, what am I complaining about? Like what, it's, there's people that would wish that they could have an opportunity to start a new career in a new field, but for one reason or another, they're not able to, so I almost see like the struggles as like blessings. Like how lucky am I that I get to fail in business, but fail forward, Yeah.
Yeah. And people are so obsessed with failing that they don't want to fail.
Yeah.
But then after you go through the failure, you're kind of like, man, I'm kind of glad I went through that because I actually did learn a thing or two out of that I could reapply to the next scenario.
Yeah, definitely. I think because in school they teach you like the worst thing that can happen to you is you get an F, you fail.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like wired
we're all
like
primed
that. Like
to do that.
Yeah, we're
like,
wired
heck,
to never fail. It's the worst thing that can happen. Yeah, just how it's you have to fail forward. Take each opportunity as a stepping stone. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as we're kind of wrapping up this episode here, Jorgenna, I did want to ask this last question for anyone listening out there who's stuck overthinking or in kind of this self-doubt mindset of themselves. What's one powerful belief or daily habit that they could even start using today or breaking through?
Mm-hmm. I would say for anybody that's maybe dealing with like confidence or self-belief, start doing little things that help you follow through with your word. Like, for example, if you wake up and you say, okay, I'm going to wake up every day at 7 a.m. Slowly you start to do that habit. It builds your self-confidence of like, wow, I value my word. I follow through with what I say I'm going to do, right? Or even if it's something as simple as going to the gym or running 8 miles on a random Friday morning, whatever it is, but kind of like, or even I'm going to read a page of this book every day before I go to sleep, whatever it is, XYZ thing, those daily habits that slowly build your confidence. And then you become somebody that, I value my word. My word holds weight, Yeah.
Well, what's something that you've done that you started that you still do till this day?
Definitely the gym. I would say when I like a healthy body, healthy mind,
Totally.
Right? Yeah. Again, I think and maybe it comes down to playing sports growing up. I think just it's more so what it does for your mind of like having the discipline and pushing yourself every single day. And it's getting like comfortable being uncomfortable.
Totally. I mean, this whole thing, even just trying to find the spot today was uncomfortable. I was we're just asking different people. 3 restaurants later, and we're in the middle. I don't even know where the hell we are.
It's been really, awesome to really break down, right? Like it's not something light to just say like you're 25 years old, you're running a 7-figure business. Like, who else can just say that? Like, you're like in the 1% of the 1%, you know what I mean? Especially for your age group. So we really, really appreciate you taking some time today. It was very valuable, you know, like I think a lot of these podcasts, like even though we intended for the audience to, you know, take away something, we always apply for our own life too, you know, like all the guests that we've had and everybody that we've talked to, like we always try to learn a thing or two from themselves, even during the conversation. You know, so we appreciate it. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see the growth here on the podcast too. I know you guys have a lot of surprises planned, a lot of a lot of good things coming. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be rooting for you guys. Yeah.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time here today.
Yes, of course.
Cool. Well, anyways, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Straight to the Point. Thank you, Jorgenna, for coming out. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.